Hello and welcome to the CUFI UK podcast for Zion's sake. My name is Alastair, and today, instead of Alex, I'm joined by the CUFI UK Executive Director, Des Starritt.
Hello.
In today's podcast, on the day that Hamas releases the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages, we discuss the appalling theatre of Hamas, their evil propaganda, and why today our hearts go out to the Jewish people. So Des, today our hearts are filled with heartache for Israel and the Jewish people. The bodies of 4 hostages have been returned to Israel. They are expected to be the bodies of Shiri Bibas and her 2 young children, 2 babies, Ariel and Kfir. Ariel, who's 4, Kfir, who's 9 months old, and also of 84-year-old Oded Lifshitz. They are being returned rightfully home to where they should be. But we had been hoping and praying, and they should have been returned alive. In fact, they should never have been kidnapped from Israel at all anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
We really are feeling a sense of burden for Israel and the Jewish people today. We articulate what we have repeatedly said, but today it feels even more important just to be able to express that we as Christians stand in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people. Our hearts go out to you. We will not give up speaking out against anti-Semitism, the hatred towards Israel. We are with you, we love you, and we're going to do all that we can to be able to raise our voices in support for the remaining hostages.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very sad day for Israel and a sad day for humanity. You know, the fact that this has happened is tragic. And we always knew this day was coming. But obviously it doesn't get any easier when it actually happens. And the circumstances of it today and the way Hamas have used it in their propaganda is very repulsive in the way they've done it. So we'll discuss that a bit. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we should just point out that we are doing this podcast soon after actually seeing the images and footage on the news this morning of the coffins that were placed on the stage in Hamas's theatre, the sickening theatre, which just when you thought it could not be even more depraved with the previous hostage releases, the way they've been paraded and made an absolute spectacle in an attempt to gloss over Hamas's evil. And yet actually revealing to those who have their eyes open the absolute depth of their evil.
No one should be fooled at all.
No, absolutely not. So we're in response to that. It should be pointed out that, of course, Israel themselves need to do the proper verification, but we are speaking on the basis that we know that this is the Bibas family and also Oded, the 84-year-old gentleman, the oldest hostage that was taken. We've been praying for the Bibas family. Let's remember that they, as a family, were taken hostage on the 7th of October, 2023. We saw those horrific images of Shiri and her 2 babies in her arms, looking terrified. What must have been going through the thoughts of their loved ones as they saw those images on the newsreels, taken into Gaza, of course, separated from the father, Yarden. Yarden was released on the 1st of February, and he came home still with the hope that his family, that his wife and 2 infants were still alive.
And actually he said that. I mean, when he was paraded on the stage that Hamas put up, he was obviously very traumatized very very thin and gaunt.
Yes.
He'd obviously suffered a lot over those nearly 500 days.
Mm.
But he still did not know. And he was forced by Hamas into giving a little speech.
Mm.
And in that speech, he said how much he was looking forward to seeing his wife and children. They hadn't told him. That was part of the ongoing torture that they were subjecting him to, even right up to the last moment.
You make a very good point, because there is the physical torture. There's also the psychological and the emotional trauma that Hamas have deliberately put the hostages through, and in fact their loved ones also. And in the case of
Yardin,
Israel, and the whole of Israel, and in the case of Yardin, I believe that there was that Hamas way back in November the year before, that Israel was told that the Bibas family were dead. They'd been killed. And yet at the same time, one of the other hostages, a young lady, was also there. Her family was also told that she was killed, when in fact she was alive.
I know.
So you have these mixed messages.
Yep.
You also had confirmation from Israel at one point that showed on security cameras them being moved from one place to another. That gave some hope, even though that was earlier on in the stages. But it at least gave some indication to the family that they weren't killed on the 7th of October. They were at one point alive in Gaza.
And I think they actually said even yesterday, until we receive definitive confirmation, our journey is not over.
Yes.
So they're still holding on to hope.
Yes.
Even now that,
yes.
And Israel recognize that they have to check everything out.
Of course. There has to be autopsy and everything like that. So we certainly do not want to preempt that. We knew that there were going to be deceased hostages that needed to be returned. We didn't know that, the Bibas family, certainly for all of us who were following the hostage situation, so it became symbolic of the depravity of Hamas. So that really resonated with the pro-Israel community, rightly so. There's no way that babies should have been snatched from their homes by terrorists and kept in tunnels by Hamas terrorists in Gaza, separated from the family, treated in this appalling way. We also have Oded. Oded was a peace activist. He had worked with reconciliation work, dedicated his life to that.
I know. And helping the Palestinians.
Yeah.
That was the thing. He'd, arranged for hospital appointments and all those sort of things for Palestinians. So his heart, gone out to them, but they treated him so badly, and his wife too, although she was released, wasn't she?
Yes, yes. Indeed. Let's talk about the propaganda, because the theatre of Hamas, as we saw this morning on our television screens, the huge banner, behind them, showing an awful caricature of Prime Minister Netanyahu depicted as a vampire, blaming Israel for their deaths. I mean, could it get even more horrific? In Arabic, in English, and in Hebrew, explaining that their death was as a direct result of Israel's actions, as a result of an airstrike.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and US bombs as well.
And US bombs
they
were
highlighting. Yeah.
Yes.
The whole situation had been contrived for a long time.
Yes.
I mean, when this hostage deal was started, Israel had requested that the Bibas family were the first ones to be released. And when that on day one that didn't happen, obviously we started to get concerned. Hamas have chosen their moment to release the dead bodies of the Bibas family. And they have literally prepared for it. So they've had time to think about how to present this to the world. And this is what they come up with.
Yes.
Bombs on the stage next to 4 coffins.
Yes.
The graphics behind showing, as you say, Netanyahu as a vampire with blood.
Which is extraordinary how Hamas are even resourced to be able to print off a huge banner in
Yeah,
because if we have to believe all of what we hear, right?
No, I agree, and they've obviously prepared for it. This whole situation has been under their control.
Yes,
and they have chosen their moment.
Yes,
and we've seen that all the way through. From the early ones, the first ones that were released were really healthy young ladies, looking quite well.
On the surface, looking
on the
well.
surface. Let's not forget the trauma and everything else that went with it. But in real terms, they couldn't release the bodies of young children on day one because the world would be against them.
Yeah.
Instead, somehow or other, our media has put Hamas in a positive light for releasing hostages.
I know.
Now, these are hostages were people who were taken by force on the 7th of October.
Yes.
Under extreme conditions. They've been in tunnels and other things. Yes. They've obviously not been well looked after. The Red Cross has not even visited them.
No.
And so we've had people the media somehow is trying to compare prisoners being released, prisoners who have committed crimes, some including murder, from Israeli jails, with hostages being released from torturous situations by Hamas. Yes. There is no comparison.
In fact, I think even there was a screenshot circulating of a BBC bulletin where on the news strip at the bottom, they said that regarding the hostages and the prisoners exchange, they said that hostages on both sides showing health concerns.
Yes,
and
they did.
So there we are again, always drawing those comparisons.
I know, and of course Hamas taps into this too.
Yeah.
So when Hamas released 3 very gaunt hostages, the very same day, the Palestinian prisoners that were being released started acting out that they had suffered under Israeli imprisonment. Yes. Now, these are prisoners who needed to be in prison because of the crimes they committed. They were, or in some cases they were, because we don't even know that for certain, because some of them weren't necessarily even in prison, but they were acting out the part as though they had been released. And they were claiming that they'd been mistreated by Israel. And yet Israel allows the Red Cross, humanitarian services, to visit the prisoners, to check that out. Hamas did not.
No.
The Red Cross never got to sort any of those. The only time they see them is when they transfer them to Israel in a hostage exchange situation like this.
Yes.
At least the Red Cross today put screens alongside the vehicles that they were taking the coffins home in.
Yes.
That's their first attempt to stop Hamas, surrounding the vehicles and creating the havoc that they did in previous exchanges.
Which was important because if you saw some of the shots of the crowds, I'm not sure if this came up on the on all of the footage, but certainly there were photos online just showing the thousands of people which were actually there. It doesn't look like there were many people there on the TV. But there are thousands that were there to gather to look at these 4 caskets.
Yeah.
And so, you make the point. Rightly so. We have to be extremely careful. There's that that as Christians we don't fall, or anybody does not fall for this propaganda.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Because it is subtle. It is deliberate as well. I know that there was that massive poster. Which was blaming Israel for their deaths. But we have seen time and time again how Hamas's narrative seeps through into the mainstream coverage.
Yeah, watch out for that.
And the media will readily quote that. I mean, they are ready to quote it.
Yeah, and bear in mind, the media is generally presenting Hamas propaganda. The media does not get into Gaza, so they're not there on the ground to check out what's going on. They are presenting things on our news every day of the week, which they have been provided for by Hamas.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because actually this week, the BBC, remember this is probably one of the most tragic weeks for the state of Israel since the 7th of October 2023. And in this week where we were anticipating the first releasing of bodies of hostages, the BBC broadcast a documentary that was called Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone.
Yes.
Now, the presenter of that, who was a young 13-year-old Gazan boy, was actually the son of a Hamas leader.
Mm-hmm.
And now the BBC is being called upon to withdraw that documentary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there will probably be even further action. This is an Hamas official using their son to present a documentary at prime time TV on the BBC. I mean, I don't know how this can be allowed. I don't know how they get away with it.
No, well, they're trying to be fair, is the way they see it. They're trying to be equivalent.
Yeah.
But there is no equivalence between a terrorist organization that has taken people captive by force and put them in the hostage situation, and prisoners who have committed war crimes, at least some war crimes, who are being released. And the ratio is crazy. I mean, we're talking about one Israeli hostage to 30 to 40 terrorists.
Yes.
And they're being released back into Gaza, back into the West Bank. And so there is no equivalence.
No.
Hamas has everyone over a barrel, and the media are falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, you mentioned about the bombs on the stage.
Yes.
That's purely to highlight that the US are involved because the US supply the arms.
Yes.
So they're blaming the US.
Yes.
They're blaming Israel. Netanyahu there with blood on his hands, so to speak. But actually, Hamas are actually saying, we would have wanted to release these children alive.
Yes.
But you've killed them.
No.
And it's just like, hang on, let's be real.
Yes.
On the 7th of October, they went in and killed innocent babies. They actually put them into ovens.
Yeah.
They killed them in front of their parents.
Yes.
Or they killed their parents in front of the children.
Yes.
They had no intention. If they had their way, and their charter makes it clear, their intention is to wipe out every Jew on the face of the earth.
Yes.
They do not want Jewish children returned to their homeland.
Let's be absolutely clear. Israel is not to blame. We don't yet know actually how they died.
No.
Now, we're not saying that there could be a possibility that they did die as a result of an Israeli airstrike.
Yep.
But if you believe that therefore Israel is to blame, and they might not be, by the way, as well. Okay. But if it turns out that they were, Israel is not to blame. If you believe anything otherwise, then you have been fooled by Hamas's propaganda, hook, line, and sinker. You have been deceived by jihadist propaganda.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Israel is not to blame. They should not have even been taken by Hamas from Gaza in the first place. They should have been released, and they certainly shouldn't have been taking babies and putting them in tunnels.
No. Hamas started the war, and Hamas continued the war. At any point during the last 500 days, Hamas could have returned all the hostages, and the war would have been over.
Yeah.
There would have been no more bombing, of anything in Gaza. So Hamas is entirely to blame.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are trying to put the blame onto the US, onto Israel, onto Netanyahu, and saying that, having the nerve to say that Israel doesn't care about its women and children.
Yes.
When Hamas have been using their own women and children as human shields.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they've certainly been using the hostages as human shields.
Absolutely. And it's the human shields is the reason why the Bibas family were taken, were held hostage, and they probably it was in Hamas's interest to keep alive to an extent because they were human shields. Yeah. And there's 3 reasons why Hamas uses human shields. The first reason is because they are cowards.
Yeah.
They are cowards. Okay? They are not fighting for a righteous cause.
Not at all.
The cowardice is because they're fighting for death. They're fighting for a lost cause. And so the first thing is because these jihadists are cowards. The second reason why they use hostages is because it hurts Israel.
Absolutely.
It damages Israel. They have this, they're not even concerned really about themselves because they have been indoctrinated with this martyrdom mentality. So they have been wired in a way in which if they know that if they die, they believe whatever, okay? They want Israel to be hurt. They want individual families to be hurt, but they also want the nation of Israel to be hurt because Israel is unique compared actually to the Palestinians because Israel collectively is hurting today. The people, we say, Am Israel High, the people of Israel live.
Yeah.
They know that by even the death of one Israeli is actually damaging and hurting Israel because they are a people group and they are one people, they're one group, the Israeli people. Now, the Palestinian people don't have that unity. They don't. We might think they do when we see the streets of London with that Palestinian flag. We might think that there is this solidarity for the Palestinian people, but they're actually not. They're only united for one cause, and that is the destruction of Israel. That's why
drawn together by hate.
That's why the PLO was founded. That's why there was this movement to form this Palestinian solidarity movement because they wanted to undermine the legitimacy of the state of Israel. They're united on that one cause. So actually, they're not. There's not a collective really there. Whereas the Jewish people are this body of people that when one Israeli is murdered, the whole nation hurts. So it is to hurt Israel. But the third reason why they have hostages is because they want to blame Israel. Because when something happens where the hostages are killed, okay, we mentioned the fact that they don't care themselves about their martyrdom, but when they are, and if there have been hostages that have been killed as a result of an Israeli airstrike, then suddenly the attention turns not to them, to Israel. The blame goes to Israel. It undermines Israel's very act of military action against Gaza. That then makes it a political issue. It makes it a humanitarian issue. It casts doubt over Israel's actions and decisions. And that is all to do with blaming and demonizing Israel. And it comes straight out of the Nazi textbook, this demonization of Israel. And they know that if one of those hostages dies as a result of an Israeli weapon, then actually, it turns the attention on Israel.
Unfortunately, any hostage is a no-win situation for Israel. They cannot win in that situation because the very fact that they're taken in the first place is clearly a failure on Israel's part, as they see it. The fact that they have been taken and are then used in bartering, because they're a pawn in the game for Hamas.
Absolutely.
Let's not be, Hamas has no concern for those hostages. All the things they've been saying today about their care and concern for these, hostage families, it's typical propaganda of a Nazi regime.
Yes.
And yet they're accusing Israel of being a Nazi regime.
Yes.
The Zionist entity is a Nazi regime. It says on the banner.
Yes.
I mean, unbelievable.
What an
it's
insult.
A total turnaround.
Absolutely.
It's actually accusing their enemies of what they're actually doing themselves.
Yes, yeah.
It's a lie from the pit of hell.
Yes.
And it really is.
Yeah.
And if the world doesn't stand up to this, it will continue.
Yeah.
It has to stop.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if anybody listening, watching, is asked the question or is told, yes, but they died as a result of Israel's strike, and it's possible you could get that question asked, then reply, why were they there in the first place? And when did it become acceptable for babies to be used and to be weaponized as a tactic of war?
I know. It's totally war crimes.
Yeah.
So I don't see the ICC shouting and jumping up and down.
No, there's been far too much silence for too long. Now, on Saturday, we are expecting 6 hostages to be released.
But the final phase.
The final phase
of this phase.
Now, 2 of those hostages have actually been held hostage for more than 10 years. One of them was 2014, the other one was 2015. And they were actually held. Now, interestingly, and I think it's helpful to give this detail, because they were held hostage as a result of them accidentally crossing over from Israel into Gaza. One of the individuals, according to his parents, the Ethiopian young man, has special educational needs,
right.
and something happened where he accidentally crossed over. He's been held hostage 10 years. Where has been the outcry from humanitarian and international aid agencies calling for their release? It's only now, in this present situation, that their plight is really, well, I've not even heard it mentioned, actually, but it's only now we're talking about it. So, look, there does have to be a lot more said. And today of all days, is a fitting day to ask ourselves whether we are going to speak out against Jew hatred or whether we are going to turn the other way. It was Bonhoeffer who said that silence in the face of evil in itself is evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. And we must speak out. Share the plight of the hostages on your social media. Ask your church to pray for the hostages. Don't take any nonsense when you hear it. Reply with the truth. We have to make our voices heard.
Yeah.
And we need to pray for the hostages, and we need to demonstrate to the Jewish people that we mean what we say when we say that we stand with them. We have to speak out because, as you say, Des, the propaganda is so deceptive that we have seen from history where it leads when people turn the other way. And as Christians, we have a duty, we have a responsibility, and I think we have a calling to speak out.
We do, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just gone through the Holocaust Remembrance,
yes,
and we've obviously prepared our Voices of the Holocaust pack, and in doing so, we've recognised that the times we live in now are not so dissimilar to back then. And yet people didn't speak out. And the Christians of that time stood by and sang louder when the trains were going by. Yeah. We cannot be that generation.
Yes.
We cannot. We're seeing things happening in Israel at the moment, or in Gaza specifically, which actually are reminding us all the time of what happened before. And if we don't speak out, the consequences are horrendous. We have to stand with the Jewish people. And Christians more so than anyone else. We should understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that a good opportunity to mention the Voices of the Holocaust?
I think I just have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we have been so encouraged by the overwhelming response that we have received since launching this pack. Voices of the Holocaust provides small groups with an opportunity to hold a gathering, an experience for remembering the Holocaust, not just remembering, but being educated on the Holocaust. And it is very, very powerful because all members of the group take it in turns to be the voice of one of the of a person that was a real life person that was affected by the Holocaust, quoting, reading aloud in the first person their experience. And these characters involve Holocaust victims, witnesses, Christians which helped Jews, Christians that looked away, Jewish refugees fleeing to Israel, it is really enlightening, but there is something very, very significant about people coming together to remembering, but also to actually leaving with just a mindset of needing to learn from the lessons and to be a voice, their own voice in the days in which we're living.
That's right. And it's not time sensitive either.
No.
I mean, Remini and I went to it's based on the Jewish idea of memories in the living room, where you gather together and talk about, or usually have a Holocaust victim there to share their testimony. But this is sharing several testimonies, albeit in short space. But it actually brings us to the point of recognizing where we are today. Yes, whilst we're remembering the Holocaust, we're also looking at the current situation.
Yes.
And actually, it's incredibly timely for what's actually happening now in Israel.
Absolutely. In fact, as you progress through the readings, it comes onto Holocaust survivors, and you read as a group their thoughts about what they experienced in the Holocaust and what they have witnessed on October the 7th, and what that means to them and how that has affected them. So very much a very present application from these lessons. Now, this comes with a leader's guide. That leader's guide means that whoever is responsible for this group gathering is equipped, has all of the wording needed to lead, all the tips and advice in terms of how to best run these events. And these have been distributed across the United Kingdom. It's free to download. It's also available to request by post. This resource is absolutely free. We do welcome donations to cover the cost of this production, because all of CUFI UK's work is supported from generous supporters. But we would love to furnish you with this pack. And we actually have we had an email yesterday which we were so pleased to receive. We were surprised to receive it.
Very encouraged.
And very, very encouraged, because we had one of the supporters that requested this pack is a chaplain in the prisons, and he explained that 3 prisons here in the UK have run a Voices of the Holocaust event. 43 prisoners have gone through this material. He described it as very moving. He said it was quite something, and all of those 43 prisoners participated. And so we will probably share more about that in due course. But when we produced this, we wanted to reach as many people as possible with the materials to remember the Holocaust and to learn the lessons and to resolve to speak out against anti-Semitism. And the fact that we had this testimony of it being used in this way, which we didn't expect.
No, we didn't.
But it just goes to show really how, the Lord is using CUFI through people who are willing to take that step and make their voices heard. So,
and if you're one of those who've taken the pack and done the pack with your friends or with your church group, then please contact us and let us know how it went. We're really interested to know the feedback. But I really encourage you to get hold of it, to use it at any time of the year. Holocaust Remembrance is not a once-a-year event. It should be something we, have opportunity to use at various times during the year. So make use of it and bring your friends together, bring your church together, and look at the stories. Don't forget what happened.
Absolutely.
We have to remember it.
We also, if you are looking for some inspiration, as you said, it could be used at any time of year, and I hope this is being used in years to come. But actually, we do have some significant dates that might inspire people to use as a poignant reminder of the Holocaust. We have in April the liberation of Bergen-Belsen, the 80th anniversary since the liberation of Bergen-Belsen, which was actually one of the concentration camps that British forces liberated. And then in May the 6th, we have the Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel. Israel goes by the Hebraic calendar for remembering the Holocaust, and so that is on the 6th of May. And then on the 8th of May, we have Victory in Europe Day. And I think that's quite important that we make that connection between, obviously, what was fulfilled through the victory of Allied forces in Britain, in Europe, and how that led to the liberation of the concentration camp. So May is a good month as well if you are thinking of planning something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We also have some CUFI events coming up. We must mention that on the 8th of March, CUFI is going to be in the Midlands at Burton-upon-Trent. We invite everyone that is able to make it to come to that. That's Saturday, the 8th of March. And if you can't get to that, then we are actually holding one in Bristol on the 21st of June. And these are an all-day event from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Des, myself, Alex, among the speakers that are going to be there speaking at this event. And so what a time that we're living in. What an occasion. We are living in challenging and trialing days when Israel needs our support. Yes. What better thing to do than to set aside one Saturday to come together to honor Israel and to get equipped with information about why we should stand with Israel and some of the context in terms of what's happening at the moment. Des.
And you do need to be equipped. I mean, there's so much coming against Israel at this time. This is an opportunity where you can hear from relative experts, as we've become over the last 10 years of running CUFI UK. And we can, encourage you, we can inspire you, and you can go away well armed and well resourced to actually challenge some of the things that you may even hear within your family or within your church. Conflicts against Israel, often based on the wrong foundation. We need to get a firm foundation back to our Judeo-Christian roots. And this is a good opportunity. So, look at those dates. We're planning some more for the second half of the year as well. But we haven't finalized the dates on those yet. But if you can get along to Burton-upon-Trent in March or Bristol in May, that you'd be encouraged.
And it would also be great to actually meet you, because we love to meet our CUFI supporters. So if you enjoy this podcast and you'd like to connect, it would be great to see you at one of those events. The link in order to register, because registration is required, please go to www.cufi.org.uk/events, and both the regional events are on that page. Now, if you would like to invite a CUFI speaker to your church, then we would also really love to hear from you and discuss about what that can look like and when that might be possible. So please, if that interests you, if you would like your church to hear about why Christians should stand with Israel, then please get in touch. The email address is events@cufi.org.uk. The link, the email address is on the screen, and the links to the event registration is in the description as well. So, Des, we've talked a lot about the need to stand with the Jewish people, and the very foundation of why we should stand with the Jewish people is the Bible. I just wanted to share a scripture that reminded me of this importance, and it is Matthew chapter 25, reading from verse 37. It says, "Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me." And here we have Jesus that was explaining some very practical examples of blessing his brethren.
I know.
And I have to say, for many is I heard this scripture applied to Christians being the brethren. And of course, we understand how we have been grafted in, and so we've been partakers of the blessings. Right? But this scripture, when he speaks about his brethren, his brothers and sisters, is specifically talking about who were his brethren? The Jewish people. Jesus was a Jew.
Yep.
And so it says that, inasmuch as you did it to one of these, the least of my brethren, you actually did it for him.
Yeah. That's quite sobering, isn't it? That we will be judged on how we treated the Jewish people.
Yes.
And in this current situation where we see Hamas treating the Jewish people with such contempt, the world media making Hamas and the Jewish hostages equal, somehow or other, in their minds. We're not, treating the Jewish people with the respect that Jesus expected us to.
Yes.
And that's sobering for all of us.
Yeah.
And you may even have sort of Christian friends within your church who have a negative view of Israel and the Jewish people. Well, go back to the scripture. Consider your ways, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really does point to how evil, how sinful Hamas's actions are. I mean, we talk about it being evil, but let's describe it also as a sin, because the Bible says that, cursed are them that curse you. Those that curse Israel are cursed. Yeah. Now, we understand that there is an answer in terms of Hamas's problems is coming to know the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and repenting of their sin. But what they are doing, what they have committed to is cursing Israel and the Jewish people. And look, as Bonhoeffer said, God will not hold us guiltless. There is judgment coming for those that turn against Israel and the Jewish people. We have seen from history, Des, the repercussions of whether it be peoples, empires, movements, systems that have turned against the Jewish people and persecuted the Jewish people. This is a persecution, and they are doing it to Jesus's brethren, inasmuch as you did it to me. And in response, on this dark day, when the Jewish people are hurting, we are going to resolve, and we're going to commit that we are going to answer it. There's a limit to what we can do to counter Hamas, Des, right?
Absolutely.
But there's no limit to how much we can bless the Jewish people. Jesus' own brethren. Every Christian across the country today should be asking ourselves, what can I do to bless Israel and the Jewish people?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but we can start by praying. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the good of the Jewish people. Pray the brethren of Israel. And Jesus looked at his people and wept over what was coming their way. And yet he expects us to be watchmen on the walls, to be those who stand in the gap, and to be those who speak out on behalf of Israel.
And if you're a Christian listening or watching this, and you love Jesus, and I'm sure if you're a Christian, you do love Jesus, then we are to love his brethren.
Yeah.
You cannot be a Christian and not love the Jewish people. Because if you have hatred in your heart, if you share the antagonism that the jihadists proclaim on the streets of London, if you identify with that, then you are going against God and you're going against his son, Jesus Christ. That is how serious it is.
Totally.
We're to have no affiliation with it. If someone comes up to you this weekend and says, well, Israel did it, rebuke it, because you're actually speaking against his brethren. Speak the truth. The truth will expose the evil. And so, if you're a Christian, we're to love the Jewish people because, we can't love Jesus and not love his brethren.
No, and this is a somber time when we see what's happening in Israel. This is a good time to recommit to God that you will stand up and speak out for the Jewish people. When we get certain times in our lives and certain significant moments, and I'm sure, we look back over history, but today is a sad day for Israel, but it's a sad day for the world. And, if we allow this to continue, then we've failed. But actually, we can make a stand. We can commit to do more and standing for Israel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And maybe, Des, we could just end with reading this scripture from Numbers chapter 6, which is the Aaronic blessing. We want to thank you for standing with CUFI.
Absolutely.
We need your support. And it's on days like this where I think we're prompted, oh Lord, what can we do more? How can we do more? And we know that with your support, we can do more, with the Lord's wisdom and the Lord's leading. And so we want to thank you for your support. If you haven't yet decided to support CUFI by becoming a partner with CUFI, then please look at the details on the screen in the description by how you can become a partner at cufi.org.uk/partnership. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for standing with us. We know that there are many Christians across the country that, they don't hate Israel, but they haven't just had that spiritual awakening of the importance of being actively praying for and standing with Israel and the Jewish people. And I believe that God is going to use you as his instrument and as his ambassador for lovingly sharing God's love for Israel and the Jewish people. May that all be our prayer. We want blessing to be on our lips in these days in which so many people have cursing on the lips for Israel and Jewish people. When there is cursing on the airwaves of our screens and on our social media, we're going to have lips of blessing. And this is what this Aaronic blessing is, when the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them." Yes, God is blessing Israel and the Jewish people. From Des and I and everyone here at CUFI UK, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.